Dune Part 1 is now officially a huge global success, with the film on track to end its run, earning around $400 million worldwide, and it has been received with glowing responses from audiences and critics. This week it has been nominated by multiple award bodies, even winning Best Film and Director at the Sunset Circle Awards, so its Oscar hopes are really high too. What we are looking at, if the future installments continue this trend, is a set of films that could replicate what we saw with The Lord of the Rings, for instance, which was able to satisfy many people across the board and get better and deeper as it went along. Dune Part 1 introduced us to its world, giving us an intriguing story to follow, and the character of Paul Atreides, who is on a path of change within the rising conflict that was so brilliantly set up. And it also gave us superb filmmaking that has only stemmed from a growth in Villeneuve's other science fiction work, pointing to things only getting stronger with more films. So through success, the material, and the potential of both of these with a part 2, there's nothing but the flowing of excitement and spice waiting for us over the next few years. In this video, I'm going to be discussing why I personally believe that Dune Part 2 has been set up to be a game changer for science fiction filmmaking and modern blockbusters as a whole. Before I get into it though, if you want to keep up to date on any of my content surrounding Dune Part 1, Part 2 and beyond, then don't forget to support this video by giving it a like rating, subscribing to the channel and turning on your notifications. Also, feel free to check me out on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit and Instagram at Cortex Videos, which is all linked in the description below. But without further ado, let's dive into the reasons why Dune Part 2 can change modern movies forever. Throughout the decades, there have been staple films and trilogies that change the direction of big-budget filmmaking or inspire it to take new paths. The original Star Wars trilogy, The Lord of the Rings, the Dark Knight trilogy are just a few to mention off the top of my head, but over the last decade we haven't seen a franchise reach those levels of quality that to us cinephiles have been quite frustrating to see with the direction that modern blockbusters have gone in. It's become more of an excess and the studios throw as much product at the screen as possible. Sure, there are gems here and there that are remembered as a piece of art, but the examples I mentioned before just excel quality of the highest level and did things that many others have tried to replicate. They take famous characters, build them in a unique way, and really challenge them to their cause within the world they situate in. Dune is a book that many thought was impossible to bring successfully to the silver screen, but one which proposed a story and world that, if done right, cinema could be a perfect tool for adapting the famous words by Frank Herbert. Denis Villeneuve saw that from an early age, with images coming into his mind, making it a dream to bring this novel to the big screen in a very cinematic way that would give us the type of filmmaking we'd all missed. A film gigantic in scale, themes and storytelling that it would take multiple films, maybe even a trilogy, to bring it successfully to realization. And the day came that Dune finally released, and here we are just over a month later talking about how great the film is and the success it has had thus far. It's become one of the biggest movie events of the year, and despite worries over the film's release in theatres and on HBO Max, the science fiction adaptation exceeded expectations, and now all of us fans can't wait for the next step in Denis Villeneuve's ever-developing franchise. Dune Part 2 is now officially in pre-production, a script finished, and we can all prepare for a film that Villeneuve suggests will be even better, adapting all the elements that fans of the book want to see come to life. Denis has stated that Part 2 will be such a cinematic treat for him and the audience. Making Part 1 was setting the table, and Part 2 will be the full course meal. He's given us the setup through the cultures and the background of all of the planets and civilizations, and now in his words, Part 2 will be just an amazing playground. It will be so fun to do. Now, you know that I think Dune Part 1 is a great film that really stands on its own as a moment of character adaptation when it comes to Paul Atreides. It's a film about Paul adapting to the deep desert, and in the process of finding the Fremen, he starts to become Paul Muad'Dib. Yes, it is set up for Part 2, just like Fellowship of the Ring was for The Lord of the Rings, but it also was a singular film, telling the first part of a huge story with so much events to fit into this adaptation. It was impressive in its own right, but we of course are just touching on the deeper story that's to come in the follow-up. Without giving away too much for those who haven't read the book, Paul is on a path to achieve his destiny as the messianic Kwisatz Haderach and take vengeance against the brutal Harkonnens following the devastation of House Atreides. Part 1 was a starter that had the emotional, physical and mental impact that a individual film should without feeling like only setup. It introduced the factions and mysteries that will be explored and fully realised in Part 2. There are incredible possibilities with the cultures and planets we got in the first film, showing us that Paul Atreides' journey is just starting, a point also stressed on by the end of the first film. The journey was never complete in A New Hope or Fellowship of the Ring, it was built upon and it gave us reveals, more context and deeper exploration into the world and characters. After Part 1, Denis Villeneuve can now really dig deep into making something even greater with the foundations in place after the first film, and that is very exciting to think about, especially if you know where this story is going. There's so much to adapt from the genius that Herbert introduced in his books, and with this new adaptation potentially being a trilogy in the words of the director, just imagine how much further he could take it. But what we can also expect is an extreme attention to detail through the ever-convincing filmmaking that Villeneuve puts on display film after film. I trust Denis because time and time again he has brought intriguing stories and unadaptable sci-fi projects to the screen in a way that not only honours them but makes them his own take on it. I know for many it will be the opposite, but I personally got into Dune through the filmmaker, and after loving his previous work, it made me want to pick up the books and get into what his next adaptation would be. I'm so happy that I did because now I'm a massive fan of Dune and want more big budget films like it. He has a great taste for picking projects that you can of course bring to life successfully, but also ones that fit well with his filmmaking style, allowing for a development of his skills in bringing large scope takes on projects that call for it. Dune is in touch with the cinematic experience, one that calls for a sublime presentation of the visual, sound, and the storytelling through that. Part 1 pulls this off brilliantly, and I've talked plenty about this very point in many other videos, but Part 2 will have the chance to expand, to deliver on expectations, and to give us another classic sequel in the vein of, say, Return of the King or The Empire Strikes Back. The world and the characters have been introduced, the ideals have been set, the filmmaking is strikingly bold and artsy, and now all of that can be played with by Villeneuve through the structure he has so fittingly laid out. But coming to some of the elements we will see, if you've read the book or paid notice to some of the many teasers in the first part, Emperor Shaddam IV is going to be a major character come Part 2. He played a pretty huge part in setting up House Atreides for their sudden betrayal, and this will vitally set up the revenge that our main character Paul will be carrying out. Leading into Part 2, we are going to see Paul learning the ways of the culture he has been accepted into and aligning with them to take action against the Emperor in charge. Then there's Princess Irulan, the Emperor's daughter, who is not just going to play a big part in Part 2, but also a potential third film which Villeneuve has teased that he wants to make, based on the second novel Dune Messiah. And coming to the other main threat, this involves the Harkonnens, and as we know, they were briefly introduced in the first film. But we haven't yet come in contact with the classic character Feyd-Rautha, the Baron's nephew who was previously portrayed by Sting in David Lynch's 1984 film. For Dune 2021, Denis decided not to include him with the plan of introducing the character in Part 2 because of it being a more appropriate decision from a storytelling perspective. There are other elements like this which needed to be moved, such as the continuation of Feyd-Rautha's character, because by getting the audience into the world and motivated by it, there needed to be a focus on Paul and the extreme loss that he and his house faces at the hands of the Harkonnens. The second part will now have the freedom to go into these aspects more deeply because they fit in line with the greater vengeance that has been built on, and also there's just a lot more time to do them the justice that they deserve. Raban basically fit the role of Feyd in the first film anyway, but it really will be exciting to see the real thing come Part 2 and also who plays this character, and not to mention all the characters I have listed. The big names that were cast and the performances delivered in Part 1 only get us imagining who could fill new shoes come 2023. And I can't end this segment without mentioning the crucial scenes that are most likely going to be classics in modern science fiction. Again, without giving too many spoilers away, the ones that come to mind are the Water of Life scene, giving us the development of Paul and his visions, and also the heightened scale of battles and sandworm riding, which we saw glimpses of in Part 1. This, plus all the reveals from pinnacle characters, is just going to be a delight to see come to life, and while there are so many ways that this can go wrong, it's key to note that Villeneuve has already overcome the tougher obstacles, whether it be through world building or merging the art film with the blockbuster when it comes to Dune, attracting audiences globally with the dense material he's adapting. With that set in stone, it takes a weight off his shoulder and the people working on the film, allowing for them to bring the end of Dune to the screen in the most epic fashion possible. And while I mention this merging of the blockbuster in the art film, this is what was so great about elements in the Dark Knight trilogy, Lord of the Rings, and the many classics that transcended genres. Dune Part 1 broke major rules of the blockbuster in that there is barely any romantic interest, and that the doom of the protagonists in House Atreides continues as we move from traps to chases, with Paul and his mother struggling to survive. Even when Paul manages to triumph in the film, defeating a Fremen member in a knife fight, it isn't joyous at all. It's incredible that audiences today saw a film like Dune, which is tragic, brutally serious for blockbuster sci-fi, and are clamouring back for Part 2. Maybe it's because they want more films like this. The blockbuster that isn't afraid to take things and present them through grand and unique filmmaking in a different way from the norm. It shows audiences can be more open to complex characters who could transition from good to bad or change over a period of time. This is great for the filmmaker going forward, and it's only going to get darker and crazier as we get the next installment. For me, it's a new staple of franchise for today, an alternative saga to the very cliché ones filling the market, and I think we need more of it going forward. Clearly, audiences want more too, and based on everything set up and coming in Part 2, I'm very confident we'll be looking at another science fiction film for the ages. But that was my video discussing why Dune Part 2 has the potential to be a game-changing film. With lots of insane story beats, characters, and lore to explore in the second part of Frank Herbert's novel, alongside the urge from Denis Villeneuve and his team to raise the bar in science fiction filmmaking on a repeating basis, Dune Part 2 is the kind of film that has been set up to be huge within the blockbuster landscape. The second film will only grow on the numbers attained by Part 1, releasing in a theatrical-only environment, which will only benefit the franchise going forward. Part 2 will have the word of mouth from the first film, with awards and hugely positive responses going for it too, so the Dune saga will only be a rising success with more installments, as long as it doesn't drop the ball in quality. But the current track record of Denis Villeneuve and the people he works with speaks for itself, and right now, we can only expect another great film that pushes the boundaries of what is possible in science fiction filmmaking. We'll have to see, but I think all of these elements combined make Dune Part 2 a film that is set up to be a groundbreaking one if it's all delivered on. Of course, anything can happen, and Villeneuve needs to pull off a lot to end the film strongly, but he's already overcome the hardest task of adapting the world of Arrakis for modern audiences today and making it a success story. Let's hope that continues with Part 2 and beyond, giving us a franchise that will be talked about long into the future. But let me know down below in the comment section what you are personally excited for surrounding Dune Part 2, alongside whether you are hopeful that the film could be a game-changing one come its release. For much more videos and news on Denis Villeneuve's Dune universe, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.